backup is brought to you by the best evil person we know, Pussolini, this adorable cat dictator.
Well, hang on. It's got to go on an overlay channel, and there's already overlay in the overlay channel. So here we go.
Oh, just Pussolini, this adorable cat dictator. Sorry, I mean evil spy boy. Never met him, but I assume just as adorable. Get your exclamation mark Spy Boys out in the chat, because thanks to his generous Patreon support, Evil Spy Boy is bringing you the backup, and he's hoping you bring the generosity to Food Bank Australia. Food Bank Australia is Australia's largest food relief organisation. 88 million meals a year provided by Food Bank to 2,600 charities around the country, accounting for 79% of all food received by charities from food rescue organisations. And I like the idea. Now I know what a food rescue organisation is, but I wonder how much of it is like. How much of it is really rescue, and how much of it is we instead of you throwing this out, we've already just organized for you to send it to us? Like, how much is it like these people are diving in front of bins in the last minute as 30 kilos of crab from Coles is about to be dumped?
I think skip the crab. Heroes. If you're going to save anything, skip the crab. Honestly.
Not all heroes have to dumpster dive, Nicholas.
They've
true. Created an organization that can accept the food from Coles and Woolworths so it doesn't end up in a tip. And you're making a mockery of it. That's what you're doing. You're sitting here laughing at the idea of a man in a ice hockey goalkeeper outfit standing in front of dumpsters as Mr. Woolworth himself comes down and throws crabs at the bin.
It's true.
I just want to say I'm taking Pete's rant so seriously as he holds his latte up high as he makes his rant. You, sir, are making a mockery of these people. Now, where the fuck is my sorbet latte?
Apparently, my mum was at a Coles once, and she saw that they were just throwing out all this crab because the fridge, all this seafood, because the fridges had stopped working, but they'd stopped working like 10 minutes before she arrived. She was like, what's going on? They went, oh, the fridges just stopped working, so we need to toss all this out. And she was like, can I take it? And they're like, legally, no. And I'm like, that's just a total waste. 10 minutes, come on, give it to the woman. The woman loves it. The woman loves a crab. All right, what am I talking about? Food Bank provides regular breakfast to more than 130,000 students around the country. And on top of this, more than 200,000 children seek food relief from their charities every single month. Evil Spy Boy wants you to help them out, so head to foodbank.org.au. Link is in the Nightbot chat right now, and head to tasteofmultifish.com for more info. All right, the backup.
Throw a crab.
About the most
Throw a crab Evil Spy Boy's way.
Hard-hitting news of the week, as long as it's related to video games, and it certainly is today because we've got a ton. And the first one is, I'm glad that Pete got in some time with Battlefield 2042 over the weekend, because there is a better than good chance that actually Halo multiplayer is surprise dropping today, which would be wild. So if you're listening to this at any time other than in the next sort of 16 hours, then this story is wildly out of date. But right now it's not. There is what seems to be not, I would say, not like absolute sure thing, but an overwhelming amount of small evidence compiling that actually the multiplayer is going to drop during the Halo 20th anniversary stream today. Is it the Halo one or is it the
Xbox? Just Xbox,
it's the Xbox
anniversary.
One, sorry, yeah. And that stream is happening later on today, American time. And apparently, it looks like Halo Infinite could be dropping. This is from a variety of different sources. People have data mined listings in the Xbox storefront saying the pre-order release date is November 15th. 343 Industries has got their servers are already live for Halo Infinite. There's also something that the data miners have pulled called the Fracture event, and this is like potentially one of the first seasonal events for Halo. It says that it will run between November 23rd and November 29th, and then January 4th and January 10th, which means that at least that is scheduled to launch in November. And then there's also been, I think it was a Mountain Dew countdown clock or something that said it was due to launch in 1 day and 10 hours. And then that was going around on Twitter. And then that page has now been updated to not have a clock. Peter Burns. Obviously, we can't say definitively whether or not this is going to happen. Do you think it's going to happen? And if so, what do you think about this? Because I can't remember the last time we've had a surprise drop of a video game this big.
What do I think about it? I'm not thinking about it. I'm like, I was prepared for it in December.
Should have thrown it to Gus.
I don't care. I don't like if it comes out, cool. But I kind of don't want it to. I'm not ready for it to come out. There's a bunch of stuff I want to spend some time with Battlefield, and like I get that it would be a thing. I think it would only have become a thing off the back of the most recent flight doing so well, getting a lot of really positive sentiment. And it felt just about ready then anyway. So if they've had the time to tidy up some of the lobby issues and all that stuff, then it's ready. So the only thing would be that it's coming. I think they could feel pretty confident dropping now and going, our opponents are as weak as they're going to get.
Yeah,
Vanguard is getting like mixed feelings. Battlefield is getting slammed for a rough launch, which Battlefield always has a rough launch. In a month's time, Battlefield might be great, like really a smooth process, and Halo will launch while Battlefield is stronger. So they could go for the jugular here if it's ready, and they've got a really good reason to as well from a marketing perspective of Xbox is turning 20, Halo is the definitive Xbox multiplayer title, and here it is. So yeah, from all that perspective, it'd be cool, but my body isn't ready for it.
You've sweated enough. You need to regain this heart. It's funny, interesting in a way that it's like the flights went so well from all accounts, from what you talked about, and that from a technical perspective as well, that it's strange that this being dropped as like a surprise. For me, it feels a bit less special because it's not like Halo, the full package of the game is dropping. I would suspect that if it does come out, there's a chance that it could be somewhat, I'm not going to say nerfed, it could be like a slightly smaller version of like experience than
like
what
a couple of maps or something.
A couple of
It could be a
maps, like they
beta.
still have the capacity to basically dress up a beta as an early launch, have that time to really iron out any extra bugs. I don't think that's the goal. But then, of course, there's still going to be things that you get on launch day for the multiplayer that are exciting and that keep people, salivating for the actual launch date of the main campaign and the extra parts of the campaign. I'd love this to be the case in the sense that I just think it's a nice, bold step for anyone to take in the industry to say, look, it's ready. We've got this event coming up. We want to be seen as the company that rewards our fans and that has something to give them and surprises. And the surprises are becoming less and less these days, thanks to the internet. So it's like, I'd be super pumped. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if it's got 2 maps or 3 maps, and it's basically an extended flight/beta that
It wouldn't
everyone
be
has
smaller than the
access to.
flight, so
Yeah, sure.
It might only have this one big team battle map, but it would have the 4 or 5 multiplayer maps.
Yeah, and people have been playing it. It's not the first chance they're getting their hands on it. So I'm not going to say it's less special, but I think if it did, I wouldn't be as surprised as the campaign drops tomorrow or something, which obviously is not the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, so just also double checking, it's the 20th anniversary of Xbox, but it is also the 20th anniversary of Halo.
Halo,
came out in 2001 on launch day.
Yeah.
I actually think this would be amazing. I want this to happen really badly. I think you could be right, Gus, on the idea of like a limited launch, kind of like an extended beta or something. I guess the one thing I would say to that is that then gives, because when's Halo actually out? Like the December 12th, 17th, 8th, right? So that gives, 3 weeks or so, a little bit more of people playing a limited amount of the game. Feels
Yeah, it's
like
the whole
get a bit
multiplayer is
bored
out.
of Halo.
Yeah, or nothing,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, and I think that this would be such a baller move. I think that the one thing that's making me think that it might not happen is that it does kind of eat Forza's lunch in that you've just launched a huge game on Game Pass. It's got record-breaking numbers for your service, and then a week later you drop another enormous game. There is crossover in that audience. I don't think Forza necessarily suffers in terms of like, it's not like Halo and Forza are the same kind of game, but it does suck some of the oxygen out of the room for that. But I think that Game Pass is the only service around at the moment that can do this kind of thing, and I like seeing more of this. I think that we're in this such like marketing cycle of how to release a game big. First week numbers are so important. Sales numbers are so important. This idea that if your game doesn't launch strong and get huge sales straight away, it's like quote unquote dead game. Game Pass is playing such a different kind of game here where it's like, it's here. It'll be here forever. You don't really need to pay anything extra for it. So you don't need to go to a store to get this. You just need to be told by someone or on the internet that it's there. And so I think that the first week doesn't necessarily mean as much. I think Halo is big enough to survive a lack of marketing cycle and to have this like surprise announcement. And also I just think that it's one of those like huge flexes to go, yeah, our service is strong enough that we can do this and pull it off. And and the fact that it's free and you're competing, like you said, you're competing against Battlefield, which is a paid game. COD is paid. Both of them, like you said, Pete, like rough reviews and rough launch issues. And that if you come in, and this obviously I think would have had to been planned before that, but they're still going, we know what we've got. And the 3 biggest shooters of the year coming out within a week of each other is nuts. And I do think that out of the back of that, Halo like wins. Halo gets the player base to stick around.
Also,
so
it doesn't come off.
I want it to happen just for a story perspective.
Totally. And as you said, it comes off a little less, I'm not going to say less malicious, but it's like if they'd tried to get the jump on the fact that you're right, Nick, these are the 2 other biggest shooter franchises have dropped within a week of themselves, like each other. For Halo to go like, quick, let's rush this out and try and get it out before those come out. So if this had been news 2 weeks ago and they were trying to just like beat them to the post kind of thing, and then it wasn't good, I think there's like a way this could be seen as a bad publicity stunt. But from the framework that is hypothetically set up here, it's kind of exciting for them to go, look, we were going to wait 2 weeks. We've seen our competitors not do amazingly. We know that we may as well strike while the iron's hot by jumping in there and going like, if you're not having the best time with these other 2, let's really sink the hooks in with the game that we think is going to be fantastic. Versus, as I said, like I like that it's reactionary, I think, is where I'm going with this. That it isn't them going, let's try and rush this out early. Let's try and like fight for that first week. It's them possibly looking at what's happened in the last week and a half and the results of the other 2 games and thinking, yeah, we can do this. We're prepared. Hell, it's just nice to see someone be ready early in the gaming industry. It's like there's something not to be a delay and be like,
I mean, it is hilarious that it's like it got delayed by a year and then they're like, oh, but we're out 2 weeks early. And it's that's such
We're
a flex.
Actually 50 weeks late.
Yeah, we didn't even need the whole year. I mean, it's just fun. I just feel like we don't get enough of these sort of like big surprise drops with really anything in the world right now. You get the announcement of the thing and then you have to wait for the thing. For this to happen, it's just like a fun early Christmas present. And
the best you get now is the best you get now is Nintendo Direct's Mario Party saying, and it's out now. And you're like, oh, it's fine, I wasn't going to play it. Like, that's the best surprises we get.
Yeah,
there's an Xbox under your seat version of the kind of like surprises that I want to see.
Yeah, so, it's exciting. It's exciting.
We'll so when's the cutoff? It's after that stream, which is this afternoon.
So it's
time,
10 a.m. Pacific time, and that is right now. It is 3:50 Pacific time. So it's 6 hours and 10 minutes away. So we'll know by the end of the day we're either playing Halo or we're not.
Interesting.
It's such a shame for the Game Club to get cancelled this month.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. The last thing I'll say is, if you are planning on playing it, I would recommend installing Halo Infinite, pre-installing it on Xbox or PC on Game Pass now, if you do want to get in, because
there's going to be 3 million people trying to install it off the same server tonight.
Exactly. So there you go. We'll know this afternoon. How exciting! And if it doesn't, at least we had this morning's conversation. I'll tell you what. Here's another game that wishes they had the kind of excitement and positive buzz around what's about to happen with it, as Halo does, and that's the GTA Trilogy, because this remaster has had as rough a launch I think you can possibly have. With the exception of the game not, I don't know, burning your console. It doesn't get much worse for this. Reviews couldn't come out beforehand because press didn't get code. But once people did get their hands on the game, it's just been a nightmare of tech issues. It has been a nightmare of performance issues. Cars don't even drive forwards. The Rockstar had to pull the game from the Rockstar launcher to, quote, remove files unintentionally included. Those files could have included the hot coffee original files, licensed music that is not in the game for licensing reasons, but is still in the game. There was... Excuse me, sorry. There was also the original compile code with notes from Rockstar North from when the games were originally made, like all these notes from developers like in the code talking about the game. Just a massive series of issues. They pulled the game from the store. The launcher went down. The Rockstar launcher on PC is now back up. You still cannot buy the game, and so therefore on PC you cannot play the game because you need an internet connection to the game's the game in the store to be able to play the game. So it is just a nightmare on every possible issue.
It's breaking your voice as well. This is so broken as a story that it is actually crushing Nick's larynx as he tries to describe it.
I don't actually know what's happening there. But Gus, I mean, I feel like we should have expected more from Rockstar, and you and I were both sort of pretty positive on the idea of playing this and how it looked.
Totally.
How do you walk this back?
I don't know how you walk it back from a development standpoint in terms of these are like massive technical problems that they've faced straight out of the gate. And I mean, I hate to say it, they sound really sloppy in the terms of like it's leaving stuff in old code. I mean, were you joking about possibly leaving the hot coffee mod in there? Because I assumed that was a joke. Because that's outrageous.
Totally,
that is
totally
literally
serious.
the most
Like,
the most famous thing we...
It cost you $20 million as a company. Like, pull it out of the
It's one of the most
game.
famous lawsuits around a video game about something that was accidentally left in a game. And it's like, wait, did we actually take it out this time? Like, even that feels like a joke almost that they've, on this relaunch that somehow that might have accidentally got left in there.
Well,
but
I imagine what happened was that Rockstar handed the code to Grove Street Games, who were the developer of the trilogy, this remaster trilogy. And it just... Yeah, there has not been enough checks and balances in place for how this was run. Because, say what you will about the GTA franchise. Some people hate it. I think it's beautiful. There's always a lot of polish in them. I don't think Rockstar themselves would ever release something like this. Rockstar is a developer. But I don't know how you can give your baby to another team and let it come out like this as well. Like that. Even that's not an excuse that someone else developed it. It's like it's their game and it's their name. Like we talk about these games as Rockstar did this, and I think the buck totally falls with them. I mean, Take-Two obviously are the publisher distributing it to different developers to work on it, but it'd be pretty. Or sorry, Rockstar Games under Take-Two. It's hard to look at this and not feel ill will towards Rockstar, who, for the wrong reasons. There's always a right reason to feel some ill will to Rockstar.
They want to keep that edge. They want to keep that edginess there the whole time. Don't worry, they don't want to be the good guys when it comes to game development. But it's like,
it's rarely a disappointing video game experience that is Rockstar's problem.
And then on top of all of that, I feel like I should just add, I played a little bit of San Andreas over the weekend as well. And I would say that I found it mildly disappointing but not really for any of the reasons that have been outlaid in this story, more so to do with the fact that it just really sits in this awkward period of nostalgia of feeling good to play. And I think, there's been at least a half decent job of buffing it up, but I think this probably should have been the thing a lot of people were holding out hope for, which was a complete remaster and a remake and, a real fan service versus what we're seeing here is, I think these technical issues don't help the idea that this game doesn't actually feel that fantastic to play. I'm a little more excited to dive back into 3 and Vice City because I feel like maybe the idea of when I played that game, it was less ambitious and therefore it is more nostalgic. But I would say that San Andreas, because it's on Game Pass and it is still available on that, so I believe you can play that right now. But sorry, Kittler will Pussolini's going mad in the back of my house. This unfortunately is a game that it's hard to play this and not feel like you're in this limbo between like where games are now and what nostalgia feels good to play. So that married with those launch issues as well, it just really puts a sort of like a sully on what this could have been, I think, because it was a fantastic game, but it's just not ideal anymore, unfortunately.
This is what it is now.
This is what it is now. There's jank in there by design, by original, by limitations.
The rain is hilarious. Like, there've been so many issues. One of them being this, which is when it rains, the rain is basically opaque. So the screen goes basically black. And there's just been reports of people being like, you just stop playing the game until the rain passes. The same with like, and I mean, I guess this is like a series of choices as well. There's the things where you go, the licensed music is in there. Reportedly, the hot coffee stuff is in there. And you go, that just should not be the case at all. But
the rain killed Peter.
The rain killed Pete. Apparently. It's raining in his room right now. Like, we just hear this quiet Jesus. It's like something terrible happened. But then there's also like technical choices, I suppose. That there's I saw some tweets flying around over the weekend where the original games had fog sort of obscuring the end of the street that you're on to kind of like technical limitation to be able to load in the game. But now they don't need to do that. So they've removed that like fog of war. And so it means you can see everything, and seeing everything, the game was never designed so that you could see everything at once. And people have been like, you're in San Andreas, you're supposed to be in this series of like interconnected cities that are spread over this big distance, and you could stand in one character's house and just see the other city down the end of the street. And you go like, that's not how it's supposed to be. And then like this character model stuff, which like the podcast listeners aren't getting, but like, look at what's going on here. So yeah, it's a shame. I think it's also
it's sad because as I said, like, they're such fondly remembered games that they need to do a thing, which is what modern games do now, which is design the game in a way that you think you remembered playing it. Also redesign or rebuild it in that way. Like, that's the only way people are going to have fun, because you can't play this game and then just look at the fact that GTA 5 exists. It's like the time I spent, the 20 minutes in San Andreas, I was like, why am I doing this when something so much more polished exists? Yes, it's a completely different game, but it's like, I found it really upsetting, actually, because I was like, I loved this game, and I really didn't enjoy the time I spent with the first hour or so. But I will give Vice City a go when it finally comes out again.
When you can finally play it. Yeah, that's a shame. Also, I will just say, back on that Halo story just quickly, I got the time and date wrong. I was looking at... I got it wrong in multiple ways. PM, AM, the 14th, 15th. It's hard to both talk and do maths in your head. So we won't know until 5 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Our 16th,
is when... Yeah,
it's been delayed again.
The thing is going. God damn you, Xbox. All right, moving on now, and a big story that came out towards the end of last week. Unity have acquired WETA Digital for $1.6 billion. $1.6 billion. I feel like Peter. I remember watching Meet the Feebles when I was a kid, far too young, and the fact that the Meet the Feebles guy is a billionaire tech guy and responsible for one of the like a series of the greatest films of all time is a wild story. But Peter Jackson,
I think he would potentially be a billionaire. He would have got like his cut of this, which is like a third, right? Like, he created WETA with a couple other people, and he's got to have made $500 million from his filmmaking. Like, you have to assume.
Apparently, I did see. No one ever really knows this stuff, but I did see stories dropping last week that the estimate is that he's now worth over $1 billion because of this sale. It's just wild. So, WETA Digital, who did a bunch of special effects for tons of movies that you love, starting off with Lord of the Rings and then moving forward. They are the biggest visual effects company in the world, and they're kind of. I think the whole company is kind of transitioned over to Unity, but it's also being spun off into different parts because there's a film arm of WETA that will continue to operate separately, but still owned by Unity, and that will continue doing a lot of the work for films. And then the majority ownership of that is being retained by Jackson. But a lot of the other visual effects sides are being handed over to Unity. And Unity's plans with this are to take as much of the tools that they're gaining from this and release them as part of their engine. So this is like, obviously they are a game engine developer, but the fact that these tools are going to be put in technically our hands, I won't know what to do with them. Dangerous. Well, I could probably do a better job than a lot of those pictures we just saw of Rockstar of Grand Theft Auto. Thank you very much. There's facial animation, virtual cityscapes, modeling, tons of stuff. They're going to integrate it into the Unity engine, but also offer them as part of cloud-based subscriptions. So it's a pretty big deal, Pete, and obviously a huge boon for Jackson and Unity both.
Yeah, 1.6 billion. Like that number is staggering to me. Like, and I get like tech startups and stuff get bought for billions of dollars, and it's all funny money at that point. It's all fake. But like, $1.6 billion for I just can't. How many years is it going to take to generate $1.6 billion out of the WETA Workshop tools?
Yeah, well, because like if you look at like Disney bought Lucasfilm for $4.05 billion. And with that, though, it's like as soon as you start putting out movies that have the word Star Wars in them, you're making money.
And action figures, and there's so much money off the Star Wars brand itself.
I'm sure they probably. What was that? 2012. They probably made their money back by now. I would imagine pretty safely. So yeah, you're right. Like this is and it's not even like they have this place has a product to sell.
Yeah.
It's a set of tools that don't necessarily make you money, but just make your product better and therefore make you money. It's a staggering amount.
Well, that's what's so interesting as well, in the sense that like this is a faction of WETA Digital that is being sold to a game engine, and as you said before, the WETA film still is like owned in part by Jackson, still is under his name, still gets to be used for making. It's almost like this is a byproduct of the films they were making as WETA expanded over the years through Jackson's films. It's like they are. That's what I find fascinating in the sense that it's like as they've been going forward, it's like. This isn't a thing where Peter Jackson no longer has access to the skills and the milk of WETA, the WETA milk. But no, I love a good analogy. Let's go with it. It's like he isn't losing it in the way that George Lucas now
it's just
does
not
get
his
to
anymore.
touch.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, no, Peter Jackson is still there. He's still the godfather of this company and helping them get to where they are. He still has the majority ownership
of the film side, which is like, he's going to keep raking in money from that.
He dabbled in game making, he did the King Kong game, which I always rave about and stuff like that. It's like, he's interested in that, but basically what was built out of this was a series of tools and 3D art assets and things like that basically, I love the idea that they're like, well, we've accidentally made like a video game engine studio kind of asset pack that we're just going to sell to Unity and then still pivot and be able to like make our film. So that's why I'm kind of like, I feel good about it. It doesn't feel like something that he's sold out or he's had to like divorce himself from this company. It's like, no, they've just created so many bits of amazing tech out of necessity through filmmaking, the majority I assume through filmmaking, that they're now able to offload that to something that can be used on a larger scale and or in a different medium being video games. And then the other thing I want to add to it is that I love the idea that they're like, these tools in the future will be made available, and they include libraries of thousands of assets. I just love the idea in my very naive mindset of like someone buying WETA and then opening the folders and being like, going, oh, I found the Gandalf skins, and I found the just going through Lord of the Rings files, and it's like dir/Gandalf/nude or something awkward, and being like, I found it all, and being like, just weird things that you would find peppered throughout all the assets, which I know is not what Unity's going to release. But I just think it's cool that they're like, they've split without losing the soul of what I think WETA probably wants to continue making, essentially.
And I wonder if Unity see this as a bit of a catch-up play to what Unreal has been able to do with its engine in getting into Hollywood, with its tech being behind a lot of the like 3D wraparound stuff you see in Mandalorian, and a lot of the new filmmaking techniques are including having CG worlds built and projected in a real space, and like CG obviously has existed for a long time now, but this new tech is a tool that filmmakers seem to be using quite a lot.
Yeah, like a lot of it being taking the heavy lifting off the post and putting it into the production. And so more and more it's being like we're shooting in virtual worlds as opposed to building everything afterwards.
Yeah, just blue screen and fix it in post kind of thing.
It's like when the video game tools, as you said, Nick, become the pre-prod version of the... Yeah. I mean, we saw it with like the earliest version was Avatar, when they were like, oh, he could look through the viewfinder and see a pre-built version of his world that the characters are running around in. That was how many years ago. And now we're seeing things like gimbals and stuff with no cameras that people just use to move through a virtual space. And again, that's a giant video game. Like, you have to build everything in that. So...
and then the final thing is that Unity, I feel like it definitely could be different for developers who know a lot more about this, but Unity has often been sort of the more accessible, free-to-play style engine compared to something like Epic. I think people can figure out what game is run on Epic engines more than they can something run on Unity. And a lot of that, I did read some articles about this. And I was saying that some of that is due to the fact that like Unity offers a version of their engine that's been free if you include all the Unity logos and stuff. So a lot of like smaller indie games run on Unity. They choose not to pay the licensing fee to remove that. So you associate in your head like Untitled Goose Game, Yooka-Laylee, Subnautica, these sort of games as being like Unity games, as opposed to like huge games. And that this is kind of like, no, we're the big boys as well, and offering and really trying to like pull some development away from Epic into their engine. Yeah, it's good. I think it's one of those stories where everybody wins, including the country of New Zealand. And the more that the country of New Zealand wins, the more that the planet wins, I think. So
as long as Jackson doesn't follow other billionaires and pays his taxes.
Exactly. Did you see that thing about Elon Musk like selling
Bernie Sanders? All right.
Oh no, he like tweeted out, should I sell 5 or 10%? Or and then it came out afterwards that actually the sale had already been prearranged before the tweet, and it was already happening. So it's just like this like bullshit, like, oh, should I be a good guy? Yeah, I'll just follow whatever Twitter says. That it's like, no, you already had this blink card. Oh, and can we fucking suck? Totally. So you're Peter Jackson, in which case you're awesome.
Well, I was going to circle back to Peter Jackson. I was going to circle back to him just briefly and say the other like thing that I just love about his career and where he goes like is that he made a few big blockbusters and, you know, dabbled with being like Peter Jackson Presents over a few big films after Lord of the Rings. I know I'm saying that like there's a few, but it wasn't like he just went crazy and was like, I make the big movies now. I'm the new Titanic.
James Cameron.
James Cameron, thank you. I'm the new James Cameron. I love that, like, the last couple of things he's done, he's doing that Beatles Get Back, the, like, Beatle restoration film that's a doco. He did the World War One. He did the World War One, They Shall Not Grow Weary. Like, he's using tech to do... Don't talk about that one. But, like... The Lovely Bones. Okay, I take it back. Oh, but he does cool stuff. Holy shit. He does interesting stuff with technology that's not just I made a giant castle on legs, which he did once.
Like, this isn't a Peter Jackson news show; it's a video game news show. But yeah, I mean, he no one deserves to be a billionaire, but he's someone who has been a pioneer in the filmmaking industry since the start. He's the kind of guy that was building like Steadicams in his garage before Steadicams were really a thing, just to get a shot because he wanted to make a movie and it needed this shot. So he built the fucking rig to do it. Like, he's a very, very impressive individual. And, you know, he has some hits and he has some misses, but I love him to death.
Props to anyone who made their start making sexy puppets.
Sexy puppets. And I think that what we should arrange is for him and Jacinda Ardern to have, let's say, 12 babies, and then those babies are all scattered to 12 major nations around the world and groomed to be the next leader, so that they basically take on the mantle in 30 years of being like the next president, prime minister, king or queen of that country. That's my plan.
The true unity.
Agreed. Next motion.
Unity. All right, moving on. Back for Blood is too hard is something that people have been saying basically since the game launch. But it turns out the devs agree as well. During a stream earlier this week, Back for Blood's devs explained that the rate at which special ridden spawn is still far too high, even after a patch earlier this month to try to knock it down. There's also that they acknowledge that most of the decks that are built around winning the higher tier difficulties are built around speedrun style stamina builds, and that's something that they realize is causing a lot of frustration as well. There's a health issue that's also been popping up, and they are now going to do something about it. And I do feel like that kind of became the narrative for Back for Blood so much that the game is... It was like the game is difficult, but then also the game doesn't properly flag to you that you're supposed to start on the lowest difficulty and build up a deck to be able to start attacking the higher difficulties. So people are just jumping into like the higher ones and going, why am I getting spanked so much?
Yeah.
And Back for Blood has seen a pretty dwindling player base to the point where there were some stories like a week or two ago where on Steam, Left 4 Dead 2 was being played more than Back for Blood.
Ouch.
But I like that they've acknowledged this, that they're trying to do something about it. Pete, do you reckon it's too late for that? I feel bad for these games where they're like so good, but like the cycle moves so fast.
The cycle moves fast, yeah. I don't know that this was ever going to be the biggest game in the world. I think they need to get it right for people who want to play it. Because like I should be playing this, and I haven't played through the whole campaign. Because I was just like, oh, it's too much like hard work to find the fun out of the gate. And you got to get a squad together and stuff. It's the kind of game that, Left 4 Dead 2 as well. I go back and play that every now and then when it's like, let's do a virtual LAN, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But, it's like we want to relive the LAN party
game night. Yeah.
So we go and play like Red Alert 2 and this. And I just looking at the gameplay, I just adore the game. I want to play more. I want to go shoot zombies. And I want them to find a sweet spot where it's fun and challenging to just kind of jump in. Because, it's not a game I don't think that people play for months on end. It's a game that people return to every year and have fun with for a couple of nights.
Have a blast with it. And
which is a hard thing to make money off because, like, what they're not going to sell skins to me if I'm not playing it every day, like Dota. So it's like, how do you make sure it's an effective business model?
I didn't realize how quickly the itch of wanting to play one of these games was scratched by this game. I think and a lot of that comes down to what it was asking of me in between rounds. And as you said, Pete, how to set up a match and what it wanted me to invest into how I played it. And I totally agree with your point that I think it's great that they had the ambition to add something to this, be it in that card system and through a rather steep difficulty that's there to give it longevity. But if it detracts from that initial buy-in or that enjoyment of the first couple of nights, which I found it really did. I was like, cool, horde mode, I love my wave modes and all this kind of stuff. But it definitely, by the end of a few rounds, I was like, it's not this is all it has to offer. It's this is all I want to get out of it, I think. And that's down to personal taste, but I think that's clearly a shared thing if Left 4 Dead 2 is the thing that's being played more, because it is that more, I don't want to say arcadey, but it is that more quick, dopamine hit kind of version versus what this game, I think, wants to be. I don't know. That's down to personal taste. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but it definitely was over before it started for me playing it. A little more than I expected.
I think difficulty was really the thing. I like the card edition stuff because I think it just adds an interesting element. But the idea of it being more almost Diablo-y and you're not strong enough yet to do this is frustrating, as opposed to you're not skilled enough to do this, which is a thing that you can you can hone your skills at something and find better ways to approach a mission or a scenario, but not having the right cards to be able to do it is a frustrating thing.
And it was just a skill grind is a totally different kind of grind. It's it's one that you can potentially fix in a day, in small ways. Like, I've learned something new about how to approach this. And even if you can't, it feels like, I just got to learn to get better at it, as opposed to I need to keep playing this until it arbitrarily decides to give me the thing that I need.
Yeah.
So sorry, Gus, did you have one more thing on that?
I was just going to say the way in which that system is outlaid as well. The people I brought in to play this game with me, that they came off the back of loving the Left 4 Dead games, and the thing they weren't expecting is that front-loaded card system that then not only is, I think, easy enough to get your head around, as you said, it's not too complicated, but what it asks of this is what you'll need to do to get better cards was such a turn off for them. And watching 3 other friends have that experience at the same time was kind of like, this is not tailored for a different audience, but the ones who are coming to it really off the back of those other zombie shooters, I think it wasn't what they wanted, at least in my case. So which is disappointing.
Well, I hope that they can maintain or recapture a bit of that audience, and I'm glad that they're still continuing development on it. Moving on, and Jeff Grubb, he of VentureBeat and Grub Snacks fame, has broken the news that apparently 1 versus 100 is coming back, which I could not be more excited about because, my God, that was the weirdest, strangest thing in games in a very long time, and it's been forever since we've seen something like this. I guess the closest, for people who don't know, who weren't even gaming at this point, 1 versus 100 was an Xbox Live game that was based on the TV show. It's an American game show, the same, where there's like live matches every week, and then players would join this game to try to answer trivia questions and win actual prizes. And it's this awesome idea. I feel like, what was the name of that mobile? HQ.
The
HQ
quiz
was
one?
like the closest we've had to something like this. Which sort of ran independently. But I think we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago in some way. Yeah, I can't remember what that was about.
It's always like one step back from the front of my mind, this game. It's like, nothing existed.
and I think that from memory, maybe what we were talking about was the idea that that Xbox have moved away from being weird. Because Xbox was kind of weird there for a while, particularly the 360 era was like just weird stuff was happening on live. And when I say weird, I mean like experimental stuff.
Old, Milo, Kinect.
Totally, yeah. And then the idea that, PlayStation has polish, Xbox always had this sort of like experimentation. And hopefully with something like Game Pass again, it's allowing them to go, not everything needs to be Halo. Halo can be Halo, and so therefore 1 versus 100 can exist. And we've already got this player base of people who will get this game for free. We can push it every time they open up their thing. Like there's reasons that this could exist. Gus, did you ever play 1 versus 100?
I did. I tried it once. It janked out on me a little bit, I think, because my internet probably wasn't good enough when I played it. But I totally know what you're talking about in the sense of this weird era of like Xbox avatars. Even just seeing that 360 HUD come up before was like, made me nostalgic. But you're right in the sense that it was like they were trying to capture the personality or the individual personality that something like the Wii was doing with the Mii's and stuff like that. But Xbox had Xbox Live and connectivity, and they had the ability to come up with something a bit more ambitious like this. So for anyone who doesn't know, it's 100 people are watching, and there's a player who gets asked a question, and they can have to answer it quickly, or they can ask the mob, and the mob will answers, and the lights turn off, I think, if they get it wrong, or it's something like that. I think it's like you can kind of throw to the audience, and the audience is that 100 people, and it whittles down the more they get things wrong. So your brain's trust gets smaller, I think. But you got to play as the brain's trust. Stop it. And so this was them, I think, like trying really hard to make Xbox Live not just a place that you played COD online or Halo 2 online. It was like, you could go in there and play party games with randoms as well. And I liked that. I liked that they were being ambitious and weird. And now kind of like the technology is caught up. The connectivity is stable enough, you would think globally, at least in Australia, so that they can do some weird things like this. You can have your phone could go off and say, ding, you've just been drawn into a round. You're now the number one. You could play half of it off your phone as well. Like we've got Jackbox Party-esque style cool things that have been come up with clever ways to play this kind of stuff. And I think more so than this, just go back to the avatars being like the front and center of the Xbox. They're so dumb.
Totally.
I loved it.
They were always so much better than the Mii's. Like the Mii's just
totally.
is so limited, and the the avatar system was built by Rare. They got a game developer to build awesome avatars. Every time I log into Xbox, I'm still looking at it going like, my God, there's so much stuff.
It's the first time I remember as well. Like skins were in games and Team Fortress, like, you know, you get hats and bullshit. But like, it's the first time I remember having this kind of like canvas where, you know, Disney shit would rock up into it. You know, Fortnite is now obviously famous for having every big IP. You can get a skin for it in Fortnite. But the Xbox avatars were like, you know, obviously you had all the Xbox first party IP. You could be Master Chief in a Spartan outfit designed to look like it all looked cohesive.
Yeah.
And then it was like the Han Solo pack. And people were doing that. And like, it was like the first time I remember seeing, hey, they're like, this is an interesting space, obviously for microtransactions, but like in terms of what the hell is this marketplace? And it was bigger than the idea of Xbox, which was cool as well.
It was the digital version of the 360 faceplates. It was like, these are going to be the thing everyone wants and everyone's going to use to add their personality. And they're like, they suck. These are going to be the things that everyone is going to want. And then like the fact that these were designed before Kinect and then they put them like around that same time. And they were like, now these are going to be these actual puppeted versions of, I just liked how awkward and early noughties, I guess it was, but they should totally lean hard back into it. I just want to see what the bottom of an avatar's foot looks like. That's still my main goal.
That's right. Oh my God, what a moment. What a moment. Anyway, I really want this to happen because that's so much fun. Something that I don't necessarily want to happen, but is probably the best version of what this could be, that they're potentially, and this is about as loose and speculative as you could possibly get, but the new Sonic game, it got confirmed by leaks, I believe. Sega applying for a trademark, for the new Sonic game to be called Sonic Frontiers. Apparently, it could be an open world game. And this is all so speculative just based off really the name Sonic Frontiers. But I do think that Sonic to me has so much potential given how much cachet it has had in its life as a brand. Yeah. So rarely executed. But I do think playing Forza Horizon, and we spoke about this on the show last week, the idea that, and I think Steph articulated it really well, that the act of getting between spaces in Forza Horizon is so fast and fun to do. The whole game is just literally based on the speed of your driving around this area, that it made open world gameplay and icon chasing far less arduous than something in like Assassin's Creed, where it feels like it's a real slog to get to a lot of this stuff. If the new Sonic game takes lessons from the thing that it is closest to, and I think that it has never acknowledged that it is closer to a car racer than it is Mario, that if you made an open world game where basically it's all about traveling around an open world really fast a lot of the time, you might have a morsel of a thing that you could build a subpar game off. So maybe. I hope that this is, because I feel like there's only been one Sonic game. There was Sonic Mania in recent times that was released that was any good, and that was released by fans basically made that game. But even that, I'm like, I don't need more of this. I don't want more of this. Give me something. Just turn him into a car, do it, and be done with it.
I think I've said it before. There are so many examples online of fan-made games in like Unity and stuff that people have built and been like, this is the best feeling way to play a Sonic game in 3D, which has been the struggle forever. Like, it's always been just such a weird pinball-y kind of like hot mess of a experience that I'm sure some people like, but never feels good. And you're right, like make it that, if it's going to be open world, make it that feeling of just fluidly being able to travel between locations and stuff, because that would be great. The fact that you said it's just closest to a car game and they still managed to make Sonic Racing, where they put him in a fucking car.
Yeah,
it's like,
just run.
yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Stop it. Hey, it's fine. I don't care if he controls like a cart. That's fine.
Yeah.
Just don't put him on wheels.
Yeah.
His legs literally become wheels.
They could have Flintstoned him. They could have
totally.
him.
At least.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah, it's so funny that Mario and Sonic had such a rivalry in the 2D era, and jumping has become a much more important and interesting game design mechanic than moving fast from left to right.
Yeah.
It's like that was the thing that like made them interesting as competitors, was like one's about platforming, jumping, and the other's about moving really quickly and platforming. And it's like the moving quickly from left to right is kind of dead.
And I think that that's such a great observation, because it really is like, it's so limited what you can do moving somewhere fast.
Yeah.
That like there's only so much. Whereas jumping has all sorts of things that you can throw into this that make it difficult. But when you throw something that makes your movement from left to right slow down,
that's interrupted,
and difficult, it's completely unsatisfying.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this. Poor Sonic, just poor Sonic. If he was a person, I don't know whose career he has. He has like Ryan Reynolds' career before Deadpool, maybe, where they kept putting him in things going like, this is going to work, and then it just didn't work. Like post Van Wilder, it was like Green Lantern and that sort of stuff, where you're just like, when he was in that X-Men movie as the Bull.
And Ryan Reynolds' kart racing was terrible.
Right,
It was terrible.
Yeah, and he could run fast. Why are you putting him in a car? Okay, good. We'll see what happens. And then rounding out the news, we've got some announcements and delays. The first big delay, is the Steam Deck has been delayed to March 2022. Valve announced that the Steam Deck, they had a problem, as everyone has on the planet right now, with material shortages and supply chain issues. They put out a statement saying, quote, "We're sorry about this. We did our best to work around the global supply chain issues, but due to material shortages, components aren't reaching our manufacturing facilities in time for us to meet our initial launch dates. Based on our updated build estimates, Steam Deck will start shipping to customers in February of 2022. This will be the new start date for the reservation queue. So it was planned to come out next month in December in America, but it's now coming out in March of 2022. Still no word of when it's coming to Australia. But again, this is a pretty late. They've obviously known about this for a while, but it's a pretty late delay. I don't know if you have anything to say about this.
It will only affect you, Nick.
The only thing I have to say about it is that, like, we've been so caught up, like, in the chip shortage because we're in the gaming scene. We've seen it affect consoles and decks like this, but my auntie and uncle have a very specific vehicle they were trying to buy, which has been delayed for nearly 12 months now because of the chip shortage.
Yeah, right.
They can't get the chip into the car that runs the computer system of the car. So it's like, it's interesting that this chip shortage is affecting so many industries in so many different ways.
To be fair, it's a Steam Valve van, so it's weird that they want to buy that. But you're right, it's everywhere. We're just like, where's our unnecessary handheld platform, like console? And it's like, we can't drive anywhere.
Well, you did say it only affects me. It doesn't even affect me because I couldn't even pre-order it, unless someone out there pre-ordered it for me for Christmas who lives in America, in which case that's really nice of you. Thank you very much.
God bless you.
Like, let's talk. God bless you, stranger, who took the hit and went, I don't need this, but you know who does? Gus number 2. So yeah, we'll find out more in March about what that's actually like. Ubisoft have formally announced the 20th of January 2022 launch for their co-op shooter Rainbow Six Extraction on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. They mentioned January before. That date had gone up on their website, but no one had actually come out from Ubisoft and confirmed that. So it looks like the 20th of January is when Extraction is dropping. We got a trailer for the new SteamWorld in terms of announcements. New SteamWorld game. It's the 6th entry in the SteamWorld series. We've had Tower Defense, Dig, Heist, Dig 2, and SteamWorld Quest. And this new one is called SteamWorld Headhunter. It's like keeps a lot of the same aesthetic choices from the series. we don't really know too much about what it is, other than it looks like this character could pop his head off and has come and is now going to kick this other guy to death with these little neck legs. But I am super excited for this just because the Steam World series of games are always really fun, really creative, and this looks like it's doing similarly exciting things.
It's a cool glow up if they choose to go full 3D rendered, because they were famously like, pixely. And
it is 3D, not 3D. Yeah, that's
and so like the Dig games were totally pixel, like retro arcade games, and then I think like Heist and maybe the card game one like upped the, they went for a slightly more detailed look, but it was still kind of flat 2D graphics, and I'm like, this. Yep. I'm assuming this is a shooter. They're just making a shooter. They're making a class-based shooter, is my prediction. They've got the personalities and the cool characters behind them all. It's called Headhunter. They'll have cool this looks great. I'm freaking pumped for this.
It'll be a VR Rails shooter.
I'm okay with that too. Make it a wave mode. I'm okay with that.
And something that I think we're all okay with. A trailer dropped out of nowhere, which is how all first trailers do drop most of the time, for a game called Lies of P, which I think is an absolutely awful name.
Shocker.
But the game looks to be a Dark Souls Bloodborne inspired take on the Pinocchio story.
We've all been asking for it.
We have been. It is inspired by Pinocchio. It's set in Krat, and you fight hideous and twisted automatons as P searches for Mr. Geppetto and works to reverse the calamity that has befallen Krat. How dope does this look, Pete?
Give me that whale level. That's all I'm here for. And there's got to be a finisher where you get someone low and then you just grab them and lie to them and your nose just punches through their face.
I'm the King of England!
They're the only two things this game needs to be amazing. So
that would be sick. Yeah, that would be sick. But we haven't seen, I'm trying to think, Bloodborne was Lovecraftian in its tentacle-iness and its dark gothic setting, but it wasn't steampunky, I think, which is what this is. And I was like, no one's done a Soulsborne in a steampunk... there's so many Souls-likes and Soulsborne-likes as well, but I don't think I've seen... Surge was that cool futurist one. That was mechanical, but like mixing the Bloodborne level with that kind of like automaton, they're fucking creepy in any setting. That kind of weird robot come to life thing is perfect for this. And I'm like, this looks fantastic. And then Pinocchio... Yeah, puppets. And then the fact that it's Pinocchio but done dark is just, that's always cool when they take those, what were usually dark fairy tales to begin with, that Disney then dressed up, and then we're like, no, let's go back to the Grimm's version of it, is mortifying, and I can't wait. This looks sick. I hope this comes out once I have enough time to finish Elden Ring 3 times.
Yeah. Well, this one I think will be, I feel like this would be a shorter, more streamlined experience as well. They're not going to go
like a small,
50-hour campaign for the Lies of P. If that's the best title they could come up with, they haven't got more than 13 hours of game.
Yeah. Well, maybe they've spent all the time putting good game in and not thinking about the title. And Computer Kid has said, isn't Bloodborne steampunk? It isn't. It's gothic. It's gothic. It's gothic fantasy. It's
gothic arsehole.
Awesome. God, that's exciting. That I wanted to. I put this at the end because I was aware last week we started with a good news story and then everything else was just a bummer the whole way down. So I was like, let's end on something that we're all excited by. And that is the video game news that you needed to know that's happened over the past 7 days.